Hello guys, back with another one. In this video, we'll be talking about what the maximum dimensions are for any picture that has a minimum of 300 dpi, dots per square inch. And I'm going to be doing this for the Sony ZV-E1 and the Sony A7R V. So I have 3 pictures here taken with the Sony ZV-E1 when I was in India. And I have another 3 photos taken in Bahrain with the Sony A7R V. So in Lightroom Classic, if you head over to the print tab, you can figure out the dimensions for a given PPI. All I've done is adjust the height and width here to get it approximately close to 300 dpi. And you can see with the ZV-E1 photos, we have dimensions along the X of 14 inches by 9.4 along the Y. So what does this mean? This means the maximum you can print this image at is 14 inches by 9.4 without it starting to look somewhat unprofessional. The industry standard for DPI for printed media is 300. Now that's not to say you couldn't print lower than that, but for an image like this, for example, there is too much detail going on in the background that it would probably not look great if you were to make this any larger given the limited megapixel capacity of the ZV-E1. However, when you have an image like this, where there's not really that much detail in the background due to the depth of field and bokeh, you could probably zoom into this 2 times and it would still be safe to work with. So this is approximately 2x, I guess. This image is still pretty acceptable. I can't see any pixelation at this level of magnification, so you could reduce the DPI and print a larger image. But if we're talking about professional workflows, selling professional images, in general, 14 by 9 seems to be the limitation for a Sony ZV-E1. Now later I'm going to be showing what the real like-for-like size is on this 27-inch monitor. So if you're viewing on a 27-inch monitor, you'll be able to see what the actual size of the print would be. But moving on, if we look at the A7R V and then I head over to the print tab over here and I just apply the template I've got for the A7R V, you can see for 300 ppi we've got a massive 31.7 by 21 inches, so 31.7 along the X, 21 along the Y. So this image is absolutely huge in comparison to our 14-inch by 9.4. This is obviously to be expected. The ZV-E1 has a 12 megapixel sensor and the Sony A7R V has a massive 61 megapixel sensor. So the difference is to be expected. But how large is this? And if you were to inspect such a massive poster like this, what would it look like? Well, what I'm going to do quite simply is just get a tape measure out and measure my monitor, or measure the image in my monitor, because there are no rulers I can add in Lightroom which show the real-time ratio. So for example, I have a ruler up here, but this is not 16 inches. So let me show you what the ZV-E1 like-for-like size of the image would look like. So this is the image at approximately 14 inches along the X. It's reasonably big, it's not bad. So if you're on a 27-inch monitor, this is the actual size of the print you would be able to produce with the ZV-E1. Now moving on to the A7R V, I don't have a 31 by 20 inch monitor. Let me just double check those were the dimensions. Let's call it 31.7 by 21. I don't have a monitor that size, as I'm guessing you don't either. But what I can say is, if you had a print that big and you were inspecting the poster or the print, what would be the width of your perspective of view? I'm going to approximate it and say that it would be somewhere between 10 and 12 inches. If you were, say, half a foot away from the print. So the width of this image is about 30, let's call it 32 inches. So we can approximate to about 10-inch width. That would be your close inspection field of view, the width of your field of view. So if I go to crop and I just take one of these squares, this pretty much represents what you'd see if you were up close to that print. So I'm just going to take this one in the middle. So at the moment, the width of this image is actually much wider than 10 inches. So let me scale it down just to bring it a bit closer to what you would really be seeing. So that's the width of about 10 inches. So what I'm saying is, if you had that print full scale, 32 inches by 21, and you try to inspect it close up with about half a foot distance between you and the print, this would be what you'd be looking at. and the resolution should be the same as those of the ZV-E1 image. So again, this is no surprise at all, because the A7R V has a massive 61 megapixel sensor and the ZV-E1 has only a 12 megapixel sensor. But the versatility of the A7R V in terms of its pixel resolution really does show when you try to crop into the image. If I do this again with another approximate 10-inch width square, it's clear as we expect, but then if I zoom in even further, you can see the resolution is still there. Sure, it might be a bit noisy, but this can be quite easily taken out with just a little addition here. And maybe if I add a bit more clarity, bump the exposure up a little, you can see the detail's still there. Even if I zoom in even further, it's pretty phenomenal how much you can crop in with the A7R V. So that's it, guys. I hope this was somewhat useful and gives you some idea of the dimensions of the print that you can produce with the ZV-E1. I put this out there because I couldn't find any videos on this when I was trying to decide whether to buy the A7R V or not. May seem obvious to some, but I really wanted some real figures to play around with to get an idea of how much I needed to upgrade. The answer is clear. I definitely need to upgrade. But in any case, I hope this has been useful and informative to provide you with some hard numbers and some idea of what the prints would look like in either cases. Once again, if you like my video, please don't forget to hit that like button. If you want to see more of my content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And until the next video, I will see you in the next one.